His chest stopped moving. Naima pressed harder, hands glowing with power that shouldn't exist in a Black Omega's body. The Alpha King's blood soaked through her cabin floor, voidsilver poison turning his veins black. Outside, wolves howled. Close. Getting closer. The assassins had found them. "Wake up," she hissed, pouring everything she had into his dying body. Her broken wolf roared loud, furious, impossible, and suddenly his eyes snapped open. Gold, blazing, locked on her. "You." His voice was gravel and lightning. "You carried me." The door exploded inward. 3 wolves, fangs bared, murder in their eyes. The Alpha King rose between them and Naima, wounded, poisoned, barely standing, and said 4 words that changed her entire life. "She is my mate." If you believe Black Omegas deserve respect and a fighting chance, hit subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories. Only pack bullies and power-hungry alphas won't. At 25, Amari had learned to read these mountains the way other wolves read pack hierarchies, with survival sharpened into instinct. 3 years of exile had stripped away everything except what mattered: food, shelter, and the ability to disappear when shadows moved wrong through the trees. She knelt beside her trapline, fingers working through frozen wire with practiced efficiency. 2 rabbits hung limp from the snares, enough protein for a week if she rationed smart. Her breath misted in the air as she worked, and overhead, the sky bruised purple with malice. The wind had been gentle when she'd set out that morning, barely stirring the hood of her patched coat. Now, hours later, it hissed through the pines like a living thing with teeth. Amari secured the rabbits to her belt and gathered her tools. The words she muttered to herself felt strange in her mouth. 3 years of speaking to no one but her own wolf had made even internal conversation feel foreign. The first snowflakes began falling as she started back toward her cabin. They were massive and heavy, the kind that turned storms into whiteouts that swallowed whole mountains. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, a presence that had always felt incomplete. Even now, after years of isolation, it remained barely a whisper when it should have been a roar. Flicker. A half-formed thing that existed in the space between shame and existence. She remembered the ritual with perfect, poisonous clarity. 21 years old, standing in the sacred circle while moonlight painted everything silver. The entire Ironfang pack watching, waiting, expecting her to call forth her wolf and claim her place among them. What emerged was something dark as obsidian and small as a yearling pup. A Black Omega. Flickering. Weak. Wrong. The pack elders had exchanged glances heavy with pity. The younger wolves had looked away entirely, embarrassed by the weakness standing before them. Broken, they'd whispered. Damaged. Cursed. For years she'd endured their mockery. Scraps at mealtime. Sleeping in the coldest corner of the den. Tasks designed to humiliate. Cleaning alpha quarters, carrying their kills. Existing as a reminder of what happened when bloodlines weakened. Then the new beta set his eyes on her. Not with affection. Not with anything remotely gentle. The way a man looked at property he intended to claim, damaged or not. When he'd cornered her in the healer's cabin 3 nights after her father's funeral, when his hands had gripped her wrists and his voice had gone low with ownership, she'd known. Stay and lose whatever remained of herself. Run and die free. She'd chosen the mountains that same night. For 3 years no one came searching. No one cared if a broken Black Omega froze or starved in the wilderness. She'd learned to hunt, to hide, to read storms like scripture. And she'd survived. The storm intensified around her now, thick flakes obscuring the familiar path. She knew these woods regardless, had walked them in every season, every kind of weather. 6 miles separated the lake from her cabin. She could make it in under 2 hours even in a blizzard. The wind picked up, howling through the trees with a sound that felt almost alive. Within minutes, the gentle snowfall transformed into a wall of white that stole visibility and breath. Amari pressed forward, each step deliberate. Panic helped no one in these mountains. Then a sound cut through the storm, pulling her from her rhythm. Not wind. Something else. Something alive and drowning in agony. A howl strangled with pain. A wolf's last scream. She stopped, turning slowly, eyes straining against the white wall of snow. Every survival instinct she'd honed over 3 brutal years screamed at her to keep walking. Reach the cabin. Live through the storm. Don't get involved. But her feet carried her forward anyway, drawn by something she couldn't name. As she approached, details emerged through the snowfall. White fur, threaded through with silver that seemed to glow even in the dim light. Blood matted the coat, deep gashes covering the wolf's flanks. The wounds smelled wrong, sharp and metallic with an undertone of something poisonous. Wolfsbane. And silver. She knelt beside the creature, breath coming in rapid bursts that fogged the air. This close, its sheer size was overwhelming. Easily 3 times the mass of any shifter she'd known. An alpha. Maybe higher. Ancient runes seemed carved into the flesh beneath the fur, visible where blood had matted the coat down. His presence radiated dominance so strong her Omega wolf collapsed inside her, whimpering. "Who did this to you?" she whispered, knowing the unconscious wolf couldn't answer. Her hand moved without conscious thought, reaching toward the blood-soaked fur. The moment her fingers made contact, electricity shot through her body. Power surged up her arm, through her chest, igniting something deep within that had been dormant for years. Her wolf, that weak and fractured presence, suddenly howled to life. For the first time since the ritual, Amari felt whole. The sensation vanished the instant she pulled her hand away, leaving her gasping. She touched the wolf again, and again that impossible power flooded through her veins, strength she'd never possessed filling her muscles and bones. This isn't possible. The wind intensified, threatening to knock her sideways. She needed to decide now. Leave this wolf to die in the snow or somehow get it to shelter. The creature had to weigh at least 4 times what she did. Except when she gripped the wolf's scruff, that impossible strength returned. Her muscles didn't strain. Her legs didn't buckle. She maneuvered the massive body onto her shoulders in a movement that should have been laughable, and instead felt natural. Amari stood, the wolf's weight pressing down on her, and began walking. 6 miles. She had 6 miles to cover in a wide-out blizzard, while carrying a dying alpha who radiated power strong enough to crush bones. Each step came easier than the last, as if the contact with the wolf's fur channeled strength directly into her bones. Her wolf sang within her chest, more present than it had been since the failed ritual 3 years ago. The journey blurred into white and cold and relentless forward motion. Her world narrowed to the next step, then the next. Time lost meaning. Distance lost meaning. Only the warmth of the wolf's body against her shoulders remained real. When her cabin finally emerged from the blizzard, Amari nearly collapsed with relief. She shouldered through the door, dragging the wolf inside, and fell beside it on the floor. But she'd done it. 6 miles through a killer storm, carrying a creature that should have been impossible to move. She forced herself upright and turned to properly examine her unexpected guest. In the dim light from her banked fire, the wolf looked even larger. Blood stained her floor where it lay, and those runic markings seemed to pulse with faint light. She grabbed her supplies and worked in silence, cleaning wounds, packing them with poultices designed to draw out poison. When she finally sat back, exhausted, she whispered the question that had been building since the moment she'd touched this creature. "Who are you?" The wolf's breathing was shallow but steady. Outside, the blizzard howled its fury against the cabin walls, sealing them both inside. Her body still thrummed with residual energy, her wolf more alert than it had been in 3 years. She was no longer alone, and somehow, impossibly, that changed everything. If you can't stand pack systems that treat people like trash based on their rank, comment, "Everyone deserves dignity," and subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories. What time are you watching this? Drop it in the comments below. The wolf did not wake on the first day. Amari changed the poultices 3 times, her hands moving with the precision her father had drilled into her during years of training. Each time she peeled away the herb-soaked cloth, she expected to find the wounds unchanged or worsening. Instead, they looked better. Not healed completely, but closing faster than any injury should, especially ones contaminated with wolfsbane and silver. "That shouldn't be possible," she murmured, pressing fresh yarrow and comfrey against the deepest gash along the wolf's ribs. She'd seen strong alphas recover from similar wounds. Took weeks, not hours. The wolf's chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, each breath deep and even despite the trauma its body had endured. Outside, the storm continued its assault. Snow piled against the cabin walls, sealing the door shut. Amari didn't mind. She had supplies enough for several weeks, and the forced isolation meant no unexpected visitors. Her own wolf stirred beneath her skin, pressing forward with an insistence that felt foreign. For 3 years, that presence had been barely a whisper. Now it paced restlessly, focused entirely on the massive creature occupying most of her cabin floor. "What are you trying to tell me?" she asked the silent animal. "Important," her wolf seemed to whisper. "He is important." By the second day, several of the smaller cuts had closed completely, leaving only faint pink lines beneath the white fur. The larger wounds still seeped, but even they showed remarkable progress. Amari found herself sitting beside him more than necessary, touching his shoulder, running her fingers through the silver-threaded fur. Each time that electric sensation sparked through her palm, and her wolf responded with something that felt almost like contentment. The third night, she dreamed. She was running through forests she'd never seen, her paws striking earth instead of snow. Beside her ran a white wolf, massive and magnificent, lightning crackling through his fur with each stride. His presence didn't make her cower. It made her feel powerful. A voice called her name, deep and resonant, speaking syllables that felt like recognition. She woke gasping, hand pressed against the sleeping wolf's side. The fourth day brought a shift she couldn't explain. The cabin felt smaller. The air felt charged. She caught herself staring at the wolf's face, wondering what kind of man wore a form this magnificent. She began to feel something she hadn't experienced in 3 years. Safe. And that terrified her more than any storm. "Who are you?" she whispered on the fourth night, her voice barely audible over the wind. "And why does my wolf recognize you?" The fifth morning arrived with eerie silence. The storm had finally passed. Amari woke to find the wolf watching her with amber eyes that gleamed like molten gold. Before she could react, his form began to shimmer. Bones cracked and reformed. Fur receded into pale skin. She scrambled backward as the transformation completed. The man before her was terrifyingly beautiful. Pale skin carved with the same runic markings she'd seen on his wolf form. Long white hair woven into intricate braids that fell past his shoulders. A face that looked sculpted from marble and moonlight. Golden eyes that flickered like embers in a dying fire. His presence hit her like a physical force. Dominance so overwhelming her wolf nearly drove her to her knees. She forced herself to stay upright, trembling. He studied her with an expression she couldn't read. Confusion. Wonder. Something that looked almost like reverence. "My name is Draven," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "Why did you save me?" The question hung between them, heavy with implications she didn't understand. Amari met his gaze, refusing to show the fear coursing through her veins. "Because someone should have." The words came out stronger than she felt. For a long moment he simply stared at her. Then he laughed, soft and disbelieving, like it was the first time he'd heard kindness and didn't quite know what to do with it. "Someone should have," he repeated quietly, as if testing the weight of the phrase. She moved closer, professional instinct overriding her terror. "Your wounds need checking." When her fingers brushed against the half-healed gash on his ribs, images flooded her mind. A grand hall filled with wolves in formal dress. Faces twisted with false smiles. A chalice passed with ceremony. The taste of wine turning bitter. Poison burning through veins. Betrayal wearing the mask of loyalty. She jerked her hand back, gasping. Draven's expression had hardened, all traces of softness vanishing. "You saw. Council chambers," she whispered. "Someone poisoned you. Someone close to you." His jaw clenched. "That is a story that will destroy kingdoms. Then tell me who you're running from." His golden eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "I'm not running from anyone. I am the one they run from." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Someone wants the Alpha King dead." Amari froze. The Alpha King. She'd carried the Alpha King on her shoulders through 6 miles of killing storm. She'd touched him, saved him, brought him into her home. "You're lying," she breathed, even though she knew he wasn't. "I wish I was." His voice carried the weight of crowns and warfare. "And now Black Omega who dragged me from death, you're part of this whether you want to be or not. If you believe leaders shouldn't be betrayed by the people they trust, comment loyalty matters below. Subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories if you stand against backstabbers and traitors. What happens next will change everything. The Alpha King, Amari repeated, her voice hollow. You expect me to believe that? Draven rose from the floor with predatory grace despite his injuries. Even standing in her tiny cabin, he commanded space like it was his birthright. I expect you to believe the evidence in front of you. My size. My healing speed. The runic markings that only royal bloodlines carry. He gestured to the symbols carved into his skin, glowing faintly in the firelight. I was poisoned by my own high council, he continued, his voice carrying the weight of betrayal. A forbidden alchemical compound called voidsilver. It's designed to force a permanent beast shift before killing the wolf within. Slow. Agonizing. Irreversible. Amari's breath caught. You should be dead. I would be. His golden eyes fixed on her. If you hadn't found me. She shook her head, stepping back until her shoulders hit the cabin wall. This doesn't make sense. Why would your own council want you dead? Power makes wolves do unthinkable things. Bitterness laced his words. I'd been investigating corruption. Discovered council members selling territories to rival packs. Trafficking omegas across borders. Bleeding the kingdom dry while I was occupied with border wars. So they eliminated the threat. They tried. He moved closer, and her wolf surged beneath her skin, not in fear but in recognition. I barely escaped the palace, shifted and ran. The voidsilver was already working, forcing me to stay in wolf form, burning through my system. I should have died within hours. But you didn't. No. His voice dropped to something almost reverent. Because I felt something pulling me forward. An invisible thread leading me through territories I'd never traveled. Through storms that should have killed me. Straight to your cabin. Amari's heart hammered against her ribs. What are you saying? When you touched me, Draven said quietly. The bond roared to life. I felt it even unconscious. My wolf knew before I did. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. No. Amari pushed past him, putting distance between them. No. That's not possible. You felt it too. The power surge. The way your wolf awakened. That was just. She struggled for explanation. Proximity to an alpha. Dominance spillover. Anything but what you're suggesting. It's the mate bond, Amari. Don't. She whirled on him, fury replacing shock. A black omega cannot be a Luna. It's illegal. It's unthinkable. It would break every law of our world. Laws exist until someone stronger breaks them. This isn't about strength. Her voice cracked. Do you know what they'll do to me? What they'll call me? A black omega claiming to be the Alpha King's mate? They'll say I seduced you, manipulated you. That I'm using dark magic or... Let them say what they want. Easy for you to say from a position of power. Silence fell between them, charged and crackling. Draven's expression softened slightly. Your father. He was Halvard, wasn't he? Amari froze. How do you know my father's name? Because he wasn't just a healer. Draven's voice gentled. He was my covert advisor. For 5 years he helped me investigate the council's corruption. Gathering evidence. Building a case. He was one of the few wolves I trusted completely. The cabin walls felt like they were closing in. You're lying. His death was no accident, Amari. They discovered what he was doing. The fall, the river gorge, it was staged. They murdered him to silence what he knew. No. She shook her head violently. He fell. The pack said. The pack said what the council wanted them to say. Draven stepped closer. And you. You weren't abandoned or forgotten. You were hidden. Protected. Your father knew they'd come for his family once they eliminated him. He arranged for you to be overlooked, dismissed as worthless so you'd be safe. The truth hit her like a physical blow. All those years of mockery. The ritual that branded her broken. The way the pack had treated her like she didn't exist. It hadn't been random cruelty. It had been camouflage. I was never worthless, she whispered, tears burning her eyes. I was dangerous. Dangerous to them because of what my father knew. Yes. Amari's legs gave out. She sank to the floor. 3 years of survival instinct crumbling under the weight of this revelation. They killed him. And I ran like a coward instead of finding out why. You survived. Draven knelt before her, careful not to touch. That's what he wanted. That's what kept his sacrifice from being meaningless. And now I've dragged the Alpha King into my cabin, making myself a target all over again. Now, Draven said firmly, you have someone who can protect you. I don't want to be someone's duty. She met his gaze through tears. I don't want to be protected because of some bond one didn't choose. Then let me protect you because you saved my life. Because you're the daughter of a man I respected. Because, he paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face. Because when I woke up and saw you, I felt something I haven't felt in years. What? Hope. The word settled between them, fragile and impossibly heavy. Amari felt the bond crackling in the space separating them. Tension, doubt, longing, and something that felt dangerously close to trust. Outside, the wind whispered warnings through the trees. And somewhere in the distance, wolves began to howl. If you believe powerful people shouldn't silence the truth, comment justice for the innocent, and subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories. The council is coming, and what happens next will tear this kingdom apart. The howling stopped as abruptly as it began. Amari's head snapped toward the window, every instinct screaming danger. That's not natural. Draven was already on his feet, moving to the door despite the pain etched across his face. The storm. It's ending. Storms don't end like that. She joined him, peering through the gaps in the wooden planks. Not this fast. Not this cleanly. Outside, the blizzard that had raged for 5 days simply stopped. The wind died. The snow settled. Fog rolled in to replace it, thick and unnatural, moving with purpose rather than weather patterns. Someone's here. Draven's voice carried lethal certainty. They used the storm as cover, waited for it to break before making their move. Who? Either my council's assassins, he paused, nostrils flaring, or wolves from your past. I smell Ironfang pack markers. Amari's blood turned to ice. No, they wouldn't come this far. I've been gone 3 years. You saved the Alpha King. His golden eyes met hers. That makes you relevant again. Dangerous again. Through the thinning fog, shapes emerged. 7 of them. Massive wolves in formation, their fur dark as midnight, wearing leather armor studded with iron. Black-armored enforcers. And leading them, a wolf she'd hoped never to see again. The beta. Larger than she remembered, scarred across his muzzle, moving with the arrogance of someone who'd never been told no. When he shifted into human form, Amari's stomach lurched. Hello, little Omega. His voice carried through the cabin walls, mocking and possessive. Did you really think you could hide forever? Draven moved to step outside, but his legs buckled. He caught himself against the doorframe, breathing hard. The voidsilver. Still in my system. You can't fight like this. I can try. You'll die. Amari grabbed her father's hunting knife from the table. Let me handle this. Amari. She was already out the door. The cold hit her like a slap, but she welcomed it. Cold meant clarity. Cold meant focus. The beta's eyes lit up when he saw her. There she is. My runaway bride. I was never yours. That's not what the pact contract said. He circled her slowly, his enforcers fanning out behind him. 3 years, Amari. 3 years you've made me look weak. Made me search. Made me wait. Good. I hope it hurt your pride. His smile turned vicious. Oh, I'm going to enjoy breaking you all over again. But first, he gestured toward the cabin. We're here for the wounded wolf you're harboring. Council wants him dead. They're paying very well for his head. You're working with the council? Disgust dripped from her words. Selling out the Alpha King for gold? Alpha King. The beta laughed. That poisoned animal in your cabin is a dead wolf walking. The council's already chosen his replacement. We're just cleaning up loose ends. You'll have to go through me. Gladly. He lunged. Amari moved on pure instinct, the knife flashing in the pale light. She ducked under his strike, slashed across his ribs, rolled away before his claws could connect. Her father's training kicked in. Target weak points, stay mobile, survive. But she was 1 against 7. The enforcers closed in. She fought savagely, surprising even herself with the ferocity that erupted from somewhere deep and primal. Her wolf, awakened by Draven's presence, lent her strength she'd never possessed. She took down one enforcer, then another. But numbers won. Hands grabbed her arms, her legs. Someone wrenched the knife from her grip. They dragged her into the snow, chains appearing from nowhere, wrapping around her wrists with cruel efficiency. No! Draven's roar split the air. He stumbled from the cabin, barely able to stand, but his presence still radiated dominance that made the enforcers hesitate. The beta backhanded him. Draven collapsed into the snow, blood streaming from his mouth. Stay down, king. The beta spat the title like a curse. Your reign is over. He turned back to Amari, crouching before her, gripping her chin with bruising force. You thought you could outrun your place? Omegas exist to be owned, exist to serve, exist to know their position at the bottom of the hierarchy. I am not. You are nothing. His breath was hot against her face. A broken black Omega who got lucky finding a dying wolf. But your luck just ran out. Amari's mind raced. Her past had caught her. The beta she'd fled, the pack that had broken her, the system that had branded her worthless. It had all followed her into these mountains. And now it threatened to destroy the one wolf who'd ever made her feel whole. Take them both, the beta commanded, standing. The king dies here. The Omega comes with us. The enforcers moved forward. Draven tried to rise, his body shaking with the effort, golden eyes blazing with fury his physical form couldn't match. Amari met his gaze across the snow. She saw the apology there. The rage. The helplessness of a king reduced to weakness by poison and betrayal. And she made a decision. If they were going to take her, she'd make them remember why black Omegas were considered dangerous. Even if it killed her. If you can't stand bullies who think they can own people, comment Omegas are not property, and subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories. Only abusers and power-hungry cowards believe people exist to be owned. Don't be like the beta. Hit that subscribe button now. The chains bit into Amari's wrists as two enforcers hauled her upright. The beta circled Draven like a predator savoring a kill, while the remaining wolves closed in with weapons drawn. Look at the mighty Alpha King, the beta mocked, gesturing to Draven's collapsed form. Brought low by poison and desperation. The council sends their regards. Draven lifted his head, blood dripping from his mouth onto the pristine snow. His golden eyes burned with fury his body couldn't match. Release her. Or what? The beta laughed. You can barely stand. The voidsilver is still eating you alive. You're finished. I said. Draven's voice dropped to something that made the air vibrate. Release her. Make me king. The enforcers tightened their grip on Amari, chains rattling as she struggled. One of them pressed a blade against her throat, cold steel kissing her skin. Surrender, the beta commanded, or watch her bleed. Draven pushed himself to his knees, trembling with the effort. Every breath seemed to cost him. The voidsilver had drained so much, turned him into a shadow of what he should be. The beta's smile widened. That's right. Kneel. Just like. The ground trembled, subtle at first, then violent. Snow shook loose from trees. Ice cracked across the frozen ground. The air itself seemed to fracture with pressure building from an impossible source. Draven's body began to change. Not a normal shift. This was something else entirely. Something primal and terrifying and divine. His form expanded, bones cracking and reforming with sounds like thunder. White fur erupted across his skin, but it didn't just cover him. It glowed. Luminescent. Blazing. The runic markings carved into his flesh ignited with light so bright the enforcers had to shield their eyes. Lightning crackled through his fur with each heartbeat. When the transformation completed, the creature standing before them was beyond comprehension. Larger than any alpha. Larger than nature should allow. A wolf carved from moonlight and violence. Runes burning across his massive form like brands from the gods themselves. His aura hit like a physical wall. The enforcers dropped to their knees, bodies shaking uncontrollably under the crushing weight of his dominance. Weapons fell from nerveless fingers. Grown warriors whimpered like pups, unable to even lift their heads. The beta stumbled backward, terror replacing arrogance. That's That's impossible. The voidsilver should have. Draven's growls silenced him. The sound was so deep it resonated in bone and blood, a frequency that spoke of ancient power and absolute authority. One of the enforcers tried to run. Draven was on him in a blur of white and lightning. A single strike. The enforcer's body hit a tree and didn't move again. The others scattered, their formation breaking, their courage obliterated. Draven tore through them like they were nothing. No mercy. No hesitation. Divine retribution wearing fur and fury. Within seconds, only the beta remained standing, and only because he'd grabbed Amari, blade pressed tight against her throat. Stay back. His voice cracked with desperation. I'll kill her. I swear I'll. Draven's golden eyes locked onto him. Then, deliberately, the massive wolf looked at Amari. She saw the choice being made. Political optics said let the Omega die. Protect the throne. Kings didn't bow to blackmail. But Draven had never been that kind of king. You want her. His voice rumbled through the clearing, somehow human despite the wolf form. You'll have to go through me. You'd sacrifice everything for a broken Omega? I'd sacrifice kingdoms. The words hit Amari like lightning. The beta's grip tightened. Then watch. Draven moved faster than physics should allow. One moment he was 10 feet away. The next, his jaws closed around the beta's throat. There was a sickening crack. The blade clattered harmlessly into the snow. The beta's body followed. Silence fell across the clearing, broken only by Amari's ragged breathing and the crackle of lightning still dancing through Draven's fur. She stood there, trembling, chains still binding her wrists, staring at the Alpha King who had just slaughtered an entire squad for her. Draven shifted back slightly, just enough to speak, his massive wolf form still radiating power that made her knees weak. He approached slowly, carefully, as if afraid she might bolt. Then he did something that shattered every law she'd ever known. He knelt. Not as a wolf playing politics. As a mate recognizing his equal. His massive head bowed before her, and when he lifted his gaze, there was nothing but reverence in those golden eyes. You dragged me from death, he said, his voice carrying across the blood-stained snow. You carried me through a storm that should have killed us both. You saved me when you had every reason to let me die. His huge paw lifted, carefully gathering her chained hands in his. You are not broken. You are not worthless. You are the wolf my soul bows to. Lightning flickered through his fur, illuminating the clearing like divine approval. Rise, Amari. Black Omega. Storm Walker. His voice dropped to something that felt like a vow carved into the universe itself. My Luna. The words hung in the frozen air. Impossible and undeniable. Around them the snow began to fall again, soft, gentle, nothing like the killer storm that had brought them together. Amari stared at the Alpha King kneeling before her, offering everything, asking for nothing except the chance to stand beside her. Her wolf, that broken, flickering thing the pack had mocked for years, rose inside her chest and howled with recognition, with acceptance, with something that felt dangerously close to love. Yes, she whispered, and the world shifted on its axis. If you believe love should break corrupt systems instead of bowing to them, comment, break the chains, and subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories. Only people who think Omega should stay oppressed won't hit that subscribe button. What happens next will shake the entire kingdom. The moment Amari spoke her acceptance, Draven's massive form wavered. Lightning flickered and died in his fur. The glow faded from his runes. His legs buckled, and the Alpha King collapsed into the blood-stained snow. Draven. Amari dropped beside him, chains forgotten, hands pressed against his heaving side. No, no, no. You can't. Voidsilver, he gasped, his voice barely human. Used too much power. It's burning through me. She could feel it now, the poison coursing through his system like liquid fire, amplified by the massive energy he'd expended. The shift, the fight, the dominance display. It had pushed his body past its limits. I can fix this. Her hands moved with purpose, drawing on her father's teachings. I've treated poison before. Not like this. Then I'll figure it out. She ran back to the cabin, grabbed her father's supplies, and returned to find Draven barely conscious. His breathing was shallow, his heartbeat erratic. But when she touched him, something happened. Her wolf surged forward. Not the weak, flickering thing she'd known her entire life. This was different. Powerful. Ancient. As if accepting the Luna bond had unlocked something that had been sleeping inside her all along. Her hands glowed with faint silver light as she pressed herbs against his wounds. She didn't understand what was happening, only that her wolf knew. Instinct guided her fingers, showed her which plants to combine, where to apply pressure, how to draw the voidsilver from his blood. "Your wolf," Draven whispered, wonder cutting through his pain. "It's not broken." "What?" "It was suppressed. Bound by the pack's magic to keep you weak." His golden eyes met hers. "They feared what you could become. Your father must have known. That's why he hid you." The revelation shattered something inside her. She'd spent 25 years believing she was defective, cursed, wrong. But she'd never been broken. She'd been caged. "Then let me be free," she whispered. Her wolf rose like a storm given form. When she shifted for the first time since that terrible ritual, what emerged was nothing like the small, flickering creature the pack had mocked. Tall. Midnight black with silver runic patterns that matched Draven's flowing across her fur like constellations. Powerful. Whole. A perfect mate for a king. She shifted back, gasping with the wonder of it, and returned to purging the poison from Draven's system. Took hours. Dawn broke over the mountains, painting the snow in shades of gold and pink. Finally, Draven's breathing steadied. The voidsilver purged. His eyes open, clear and focused. "You saved me," he said. "Again. We're even now." Not even close. News spread like wildfire through the territories. The Alpha King lived. He'd chosen a Luna. A Black Omega Luna. Some wolves fell to their knees in worship, calling it a miracle. A sign that the old hierarchies were crumbling, that change was finally coming. Others sharpened their blades and vowed to kill the Omega who dared rise above her station. When Draven was strong enough to travel, he took Amari to the capital. She rode beside him in silence, terror and determination warring in her chest. The royal city rose before them. Massive walls, soaring towers, thousands of wolves who would see her as either salvation or abomination. "I'm not ready for this," she whispered. "No one ever is." Draven's hand found hers. "But you'll do it anyway. Because you're stronger than they ever let you believe." The throne room doors opened, revealing a hall packed with nobility, warriors and council members who tried to kill their king. Their shocked faces would have been amusing if the situation weren't so deadly. Draven walked forward with Amari at his side. Not behind him, not following meekly. Beside him. Equal. When they reached the throne, he turned to face the assembled court. His voice carried to every corner, imbued with the authority of absolute rule. "This is Amari Stormwalker, the wolf who dragged me from death, the healer who purged voidsilver from my blood, the Omega who proved stronger than any Alpha who conspired against me." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "My Luna. My queen." Silence. Then chaos. Some wolves cheered. Others protested violently. Accusations flew. Threats were made. But Draven's hand never left Amari's, and when she looked at him, she saw not a king making a political statement. She saw a man who'd chosen her over a kingdom, who'd knelt before her in the snow, who'd broken every law to make her his equal. "There will be war," she said quietly, "only for him. There's always war." His smile was fierce. "But this time we'll fight it together." Behind them, afternoon light streamed through the throne room windows, casting their shadows across the marble floor. Two wolves, white and black, intertwined, facing a kingdom about to erupt in flames. Amari had spent 3 years surviving alone in frozen mountains. She'd learned to read storms, to hunt, to endure. But standing here, Luna of the Stormwalker throne, hand clasped in the king's, she realized survival wasn't enough anymore. Now it was time to conquer. The corrupt council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, realizing too late that the Omega they'd tried to erase had returned as their judge. Draven's voice rang out again. "The council will answer for treason, for corruption, for the murder of my advisor Halvard and countless others who dared speak truth to power." His golden eyes swept the room, and wolves who'd schemed in shadows for decades suddenly found themselves exposed to light. This kingdom will be rebuilt. Not on dominance and cruelty, but on strength and justice. He turned to Amari, and in his gaze she saw everything they would face. The battles, the betrayals, the wolves who would never accept a Black Omega Luna. But she also saw something else. Hope. Together, he said. Amari squeezed his hand, her wolf rising inside her chest, powerful, unbroken, finally free. Together, she agreed. And the kingdom trembled. If you believe corrupt systems deserve to be torn down and rebuilt with justice, comment "Rebuild the Kingdom" and subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories. Only people who profit from oppression and inequality want things to stay broken. Don't be like the corrupt council. Hit subscribe and stand for change. Drop a fire if you're ready to see this kingdom burn and rise from the ashes. Thank you so much for staying with me through Amari and Draven's journey. Honestly, it means the world to me that you watched until the very end. I know there are a million other videos you could have clicked on, but you chose to spend your time here watching a broken Black Omega rise to become a queen. That says something beautiful about who you are. If this story touched your heart even a little bit, if you felt Amari's pain, celebrated her strength, or believed she deserved better, then I have something special waiting for you. The next story is even more intense, more emotional, and I promise you, it'll grab your soul from the very first line. But before you go, I need to ask you something that matters to me. I see the view count, but I don't see you. I don't know if you're watching from Lagos like me or from New York, London, Manila, or somewhere I've never even heard of. And honestly, that breaks my heart a little. So please just take 2 seconds. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Let me know you were here. Let me see you. Because this channel isn't just mine. It's ours. And I want to know who's part of this family. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'm not going to beg, but I will say this. Every person who subscribes tells YouTube that stories like Amari's matter. That Black Omegas deserve to be queens. That broken doesn't mean worthless. So if you believe that, hit that subscribe button. Not for me, for every person who's ever been told they're not enough. Now go ahead, click on that next story showing on your screen. Trust me, you won't regret it. I'll see you there.